3, 2.
Hello, and welcome to the celebration of the 401 Richmond Career Launcher Prize. My name is Jennifer Bogle, and I'm the Communications and Community Animator here at 401. I'm broadcasting to you today from our third floor meeting room. We're thrilled you could join us as we explore the importance of fostering emerging voices through resource sharing and mentorship. Awarded annually, the Career Launcher Prize provides a pivotal opportunity for an emerging artist to occupy a light-filled 500 square foot studio for one full year here in one of Canada's most dynamic arts facilities. The Career Launcher Prize has been presented annually for over 20 years as a way of providing support for research and experimentation at a critical time in an ascending artist's career. Past recipients have included Winnie Turong, Gareth Bate, and Aaron McKean, who are all artists still creating work in studios here at 401. We have a jam-packed schedule for the 1 hour that you have here with us. We'll start with a studio tour and talk with 401 Richmond's current Career Launcher recipient, Emily DiCarlo, followed by a panel discussion moderated by 401's Special Curator, William Huffman, and including Emily, along with Mia Nielsen, Director of Art Toronto, Onika Powell, Artistic Director at Vibe Arts, which is a 401 tenant, and Nadine Villasin Feldman, Director of Programming for Myseum, also located here in 401 Richmond. After our panel, we'll move to the last item in our hour today, the announcement and introduction of the next Career Launcher Prize recipient. You'll be hearing this news and meeting the new recipient before anyone else, with our public release going out just after this event. But before all of that, please enjoy this short video recorded and produced by Cheryl Rondeau for 401 Richmond with our 2018 and 2019 Career Launcher recipients, Miles Ingracia and Carol Chung, talking about their experience in the Career Launcher studio at 401.
The Career Launcher Prize is a one-year residency at 401 Richmond, and I've had the honor of being the 2018-2019 recipient.
And I'm the 2019-2020 recipient. So, I'm really looking forward to, getting the benefit of making artwork in this beautiful, iconic building in downtown Toronto.
Well, my art practice is mainly focused on painting. I think I'm exploring the idea of one's own being as a participant in the world.
As a painter, I've been working on these figurative works and portraits that really dig into a lot of my memory and experience of growing up in Hamilton and Toronto.
And so we'll begin our hour today by heading downstairs in 401 to the second floor, just beside the bridge that connects our north and south wings, to the Career Launcher studio, where Emily is standing by to speak with us about her practice and show you what she has on the go in the studio right now as she enters her last month in the studio. Emily is an artist and writer whose interdisciplinary work applies methodologies that often produce collaborative, site-specific projects. A graduate of the Master of Visual Studies at University of Toronto, Emily received a Canadian Social Science and Humanities Research Council scholarship in 2019 and 2020. Just before starting her time at 401, Emily exhibited at SÍM Gallery in Reykjavik, Iceland, and at the 17th Triennial Conference of the International Society for the Study of Time in Los Angeles, California. Emily is able to join us today thanks to the generous folks at Beanfield Metro Connect, 401's community connectivity partner, providing internet support to the Career Launcher studio. Emily, thank you for giving us a tour of your studio today. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Jennifer. Yeah, it's been such a strange year to be the artist in resident here, but I must say it's been such a beautiful experience and a soft landing after as you mentioned, I was finishing my degree, the pandemic hit, everything was postponed, including getting my diploma and having that exhibition. So even in those weird in-between times, it was sort of a gentle pacing from an academic setting back into, a working artist environment. So I'd love to show you a little bit about my process and what I've been working on here. So I'm going to just pick up my camera and walk around with you all. So I'm going to just start here quickly with my stack of books. If you don't know my practice, I am a time geek in every sense of the word. I try to come at it from a historical, scientific, social sort of perspective and really work interdisciplinary through the projects I create. Now, normally these books would make it into a sketchbook, but being in a space, I was able to actually put it on a wall and start to mind map some of these ideas as I worked through, some of my research that I had started in my degree and a few new projects, which I might be able to have time to discuss later. And there I am. We've got multi-perspectives here. As you can see, so my thesis was really focused on the creation of coordinated universal time. This is the time standard that makes our stock markets, our airports, everything work. And my research led me to learn, that there's actually 82 sites around the world that house these master clocks. And before the pandemic hit, I actually went to Ottawa at the National Research Council and filmed my thesis work. Now, because the pandemic hit, my exhibition changed. It changed in a lot of ways. And I was supposed to do a live reading in the gallery, but of course that could not happen. Audience numbers were severely reduced. So I ended up making this video, which lived online on their website. The great thing about this now is I am having a solo exhibition next year. So all of a sudden I'm able to start thinking through, well, what happens when you take a video and make it a sculpture? So I've started to play with some floor projections. You can see the book coming in and starting to play with different configurations. I love video. As you can see, I have a projector set up here. What you're seeing right here is actually a visualization from the Naval Observatory. And, this is actually what happens in one of those master atomic clocks at one of those 82 sites. And so I started to think about, well, it's very meditative. What happens when you start to use it as a clock itself? This is exactly a 1 second calibration on loop. And just a little bit behind the scenes here. So this is a work table for many, many different purposes, but being sort of in isolation, I challenged myself to not only research a lot, but really up my, technical skills and start to think about interactive opportunities for my work. So working with a great technician, Rob Cruikshank, shout out to him, we've been developing this in-gallery phone, which will call a talking clock in Ottawa. There's actually a hotline. You can call it any time and get the exact time at that moment. So once it's lifted in the gallery, it will automatically dial and will play through this old school PA speaker. So these are all still in progress pieces. This is definitely behind the scenes. As well, I'm developing a multiple, so the talking clocks, a lot of places still in the world offer this service. So I went through the series of compiling a full list and making this multiple of all these different sites, all these different times kind of existing in one textual analog space. But working within this format of the old punch clock, I'm thinking through time and labor, and especially the precarity of sort of the gig economy today. And if anyone actually made it out to the Art Museum last year to see my thesis exhibition, you'll know that this is one of 3 screens from that 3 channel, which I keep going just as, I keep it in the space now as a reference point for me developing these other sort of sister works to the video, which is kind of the crown jewel. Again, in the original Art Museum exhibition, I wanted a reading room, of course, no touch in the gallery. So I'm returning to this idea of having 82 binders that would represent the 82 sites. And in each of them, of course, there is a text that I wrote, sort of the speculative fiction represented of each of the sites and written sort of in this scientific paper type of setup. So this is all very makeshift, very MacGyvered sort of prototypes for hopefully what will appear in Ottawa next year. But overall, I've just been so thankful for the opportunity to be here. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily. It's wonderful to hear you speak about your work and see what you have on the go. We know it's been an unusual year, to say the least, but I know you've continued to work in the studio and you've made the most of your time. Thank you so much. Okay, Emily is going to stay close by as we move to the panel portion of our program. Our panel moderator today is William Huffman. William is an arts administrator, curator, educator, and writer with a history of extensive involvement on both local and international cultural fronts. William has spent a large portion of the last few decades in the halls and studios of 401, starting with his time as director at SÍM Gallery from 1994. He manages the 401 Career Launcher Prize residency, delivers building tours, and is 401's curator for Nuit Blanche, among many more cultural events and activities delivered by the building throughout the year. William, thank you for moderating our panel today.
Thank you, Jennifer. And the intros you do are always so generous, and they do make me feel a bit old, because when we're talking about the amount of time that I've been in and around 401, it goes back a long time. So for me, it's quite an honor. And thank you, Emily. It is so great to see your work. And I remember in the very beginnings when we were talking about what you were going to do, and it's such a thrill. And again, in these unusual times, I would have been normally bugging you quite regularly to do studio visits. So this is such a treat to see what you've been up to, and big congratulations. For me, as I mentioned, it's always a thrill to work with the 401 family in general, but I'm particularly thrilled about this particular initiative, the Career Launcher Prize. I've been involved, as Jennifer mentioned, I've been involved for many years on the jury, which affords me the thrill of seeing all of this amazing work by emerging artists. And of course, there's the distinct privilege of awarding an exceptional creator with access to a studio at the 401 complex for a full year, which is really an amazing opportunity. Now, I wanted to thank our esteemed panelists. Of course, Emily DiCarlo, we've got an intro, and we'll hear from her again. Onika Powell from Vibe Arts. You guys are located at Studio 230 in the 401 complex. And Nadine Villasin Feldman from Myseum. You're in Studio 215, if I'm correct, also at 401. And we have Mia Nielsen from Art Toronto, who, Mia, you're not a tenant at 401 Richmond Street, but you've got lots to do with the arts organizations and the artists in the building. So certainly you are no stranger to 401. So thanks for being here. We look forward to hearing from you later on in the program about the subject of the day, which is this idea of mentorship and the cultivation of emerging voices. And thanks to everyone attending via our YouTube channel. We certainly appreciate spending the time with you today. So by way of a setup for the discussion, in the spirit of the Career Launcher Prize initiative, we're going to tackle the subject of mentorship, as I mentioned. I'm going to talk about ways that we can make room for new and emerging voices in the cultural sector. The Career Launcher Prize not only provides a space, an actual studio, as we saw, for creation, but it also fosters growth in many different ways, certainly in the recipient's practice, as you might imagine. But by offering access to the diverse and dynamic 401 Richmond Street community, we've consistently seen over the years that the recipient grows in terms of an understanding of the arts community in general, but also a growth in their professional network. And that is such an incredible and unique mentorship opportunity and mentorship format. So I thought that what we might want to do is we'll go into perhaps each of you introducing yourselves. I mean, we've talked a little bit about where you come from and all of that stuff. But if you tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your organization, and maybe from your perspective, tell us about how you've provided mentorship opportunities, how you engage with emerging voices, and give us a little bit of details about that. So why don't we start with you, Mia?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be on this panel. 401 Richmond is such an important cultural center in Toronto that it's always an honor to be part of these programs. I come to the table with a long curatorial background, and of course, long before that. And part of why I was so excited to join this conversation is that I, personally started my career through a mentorship program as an intern at the power plant. That was a few years ago, put it politely. So that has always been I feel like that really set the stage for how how my curatorial practice has evolved. Later in my years as curator of the Drake, I worked with some really incredible young curators, and I was so excited to create this opportunity that really saw their careers launch. As director of Art Toronto, creating opportunities for young galleries and young artists is a really exciting aspect of this work. Access to the market is so essential to the success of commercial galleries, that then of course creates incomes and revenue streams for artists, that it really is a cornerstone of the success of the next generation of artists. And one thing that I'm really proud to launch this year as we look towards an in-person fair are new exhibition opportunities for emerging artists and galleries that provide a significant space at a very, very low cost and give them that access to the market.
That is great, Mia. Thank you. And I've got questions for you. I've got questions for each of you after we do the intro. But now, how about you, Onika? If you wanted to tell us a little bit about Vibe, a little bit about yourself, and then some of those projects in a high level, some of those projects and initiatives that you're responsible for that are looking to this notion of mentorship and emerging voices.
No problem. Again, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be a part of this discussion. I think it's very important, especially with, all the emerging talent and leadership that's coming up in our city. It's great to have these conversations and opportunities to share. So as you mentioned, my name is Onika. I'm the artistic director at Vibe for a little over 3 years. We try to tie in mentorship with everything that we do. So a lot of people that know Vibe over the years, we do children in arts programming throughout under-resourced communities. So we tie in mentorship where our emerging artists coming from these communities are paired up with established artists, and they learn the pedagogy of arts facilitation. This is a great way for them to get direct, support with learning how to create program lesson plans, how to, work with young people with accessibility issues, anything like that. So we do mentorship that way, but then also we provide mentorship programs within Vibe Arts, emerging roster. So currently right now we have the Next program, we have Desire Lines and Launchpad, and that is basically pairing them up again with established artists to learn about, different things that they need to know, different skills they need to have towards their artistic journey. So whether it's grant writing, art creation, budgeting, how to, just network and talk to other people in the sector. We try to provide those skills as well. So that's kind of how Vibe does mentorship through our programming. Before Vibe, I actually started a children and youth dance program called D-Life. So for the past 6, going on 7 years, we basically train young talent in terms of dancing, but we also really mentor them to get them professionally prepared for the professional world. Again, providing opportunities for them that they don't normally get, whether it's because of where they live, location or financial situations. I've been dancing for over 20 years, so I use my network to really, use those opportunities and make those connections for young people, emerging dancers. what else is there? In addition, I'm excited this year. I'm adding teaching to my list of skills. I'll be teaching at Centennial College, the Careers in Arts Management course. So I'm excited to really work with, our upcoming leaders and arts administrators and really mentor them and get them prepared again to come into the sector, because all these things I never had growing up. So that's basically me in a nutshell, but again, happy to be here.
Congratulations on that teaching gig. I was so thrilled to see that online when I was Googling you for some of the information for this panel. So again, congratulations.
Thank you. It actually came from a mentorship opportunity. I was mentoring one of their students, and they were really impressed with, like, right now she works as a program coordinator at Art Start. So they were like, if you could do that, do it for all our students, you'll be good. So
excellent. Thank you, Onika. And Nadine, you're up. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about the organization?
Thank you as well for having me here. I am as was mentioned earlier, I'm the programming director at Myseum of Toronto, and we are a museum of the city with an aim to really provide a platform for the diverse narratives and histories of our city. Our work is always either in partnership and or collaboration with members of the community. So we don't necessarily have a formal mentorship program, but in the way in which we partner with, not just other cultural institutions, but also community organizations, but art collectives, individuals. I think we really do a lot of considering what it means to make space for community members who may want a platform to tell their story, but may not necessarily be as experienced in, say, mounting an exhibit or putting together an event, a panel discussion. And so we really make space for those kinds of partnerships and relationships where we aim to provide the support ourselves as a staff, but also connect maybe a community group with an artist facilitator or a young artist with an organization that can kind of provide the knowledge or the skills where there may be gaps. And so that is our way of working. I personally come from, I began my career as a theater practitioner that was really doing work. I was really interested in providing a platform for Filipino Canadian artists. And if you speak to my generation of artists, I mean, we really would talk about how we didn't have mentors. We were just kind of figuring out as we went. I was really lucky though, and I kind of had no shame. I would just call people up. I wanted to start, a playwright development unit. And so I would just call up, Factory Theater. At the time, Nancy Webster, who's now the executive director of Young People's Theater, I just called her up. I knew they had a play development program, a playwrights development program. And I said, hey, can I talk to you about what you're doing? Can I, take you up for a coffee or something? And I, in my experience as a young artist, people were so generous with their time. And the value of that has really remained with me. So anytime some young person contacts me asking for my time, even though I'm sure all of us here are so busy, I really do try to make the time, because that kind of information sharing at that point in my career was just so valuable and formative.
I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I think it's so important that all of us who have, positions where we have knowledge and we work in the capacities that we do, it's so important that we share that and that we provide that exchange. So thanks for saying that. And now, Emily, I'm going to get to you, Emily, in a second, because I've got a specific question for you. But I noticed that there's some activity in the chat function. So anybody that has a question for our panelists, just post it to chat, and I will endeavor to use this magical technology to relay that question to our panelists. We'll get to that at the end if we've got some time. And so please put your questions into chat. So back to you, Emily, and what a terrific overview of the studio, and amazing the work that you're doing, and just chock-a-block full of stuff, amazing. And so you've had the last year in residence, well, almost a year. You'll be exiting the studio, I guess, at the end of August. I know, sadness. But we will all stay in touch with you, of course. And I wonder if you could provide some general observations about the Career Launcher Prize and perhaps some specific experiences that you wanted to share with us.
I feel my experience is probably a bit of an anomaly to hopefully what the future will be. When I originally wrote the proposal, we were into lockdown, and I was hopeful, I think, that I'd be able to connect with so many more tenants, right? That was really the goal. But surprisingly, I still, made my way to connect with people, meet with people. Everyone has always been so generous here in terms of, I'd love to give a shout out to Trinity Square Video. I worked with them before, and they were so wonderful to still work with me and accommodate, between lockdowns when I could come in and, still video edit with them, even though I'd be the only person in the room, with stringent conditions around it. But even at times when I wasn't necessarily making new work, just having access to Trinity made a huge difference. I got to go back through my catalog and, look at old video works I made 10 years ago and remaster them. And so, finding ways to still make use of the building. But, obviously it was very quiet, a very different experience. Luckily, we did have a few of these panels where I did get to meet new folks along the way. And, even just now, as the lockdown has come up, I think there was one day where I ran into like Kim Tomczak from, V-Tape, and, I was running into Emily from Trinity. So, all of a sudden that sense of community comes back. And, I know going forward, obviously these are relationships I've cultivated over time, and I know the future prize winners will be able to really dive into all the resources that 401 really offers, right? Doesn't matter the medium, there's folks that you can connect with to really expand your practice.
Well, and you're a very good example of that, incredible crossover from, your practice as an artist, and then that bleeding into the technical resources that you can access at Trinity Square Video. Suddenly that goes up to V-Tape and is distributed through their networks, and then suddenly it appears in one of the galleries on the main floor. So, that I don't know if there's anything you want to talk, just that whole almost that in a good way, that complete circuit that can happen at 401 Richmond Street.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always the goal, right? But I think that's the beauty and uniqueness of this building, where, sort of from that end-to-end experience as an artist in terms of ideation, production, and then hopefully exhibition. It's kind of all here in this microcosm.
Thank you so much, Emily. And we're gonna move on to Mia. So again, you're director of Canada's biggest art fair. So your primary role, as you talked a little bit about, is stimulating commercial interest in both Canadian and international galleries. But I'm hoping you can talk a little more about why the fair's initiatives and programs, why the stuff that you do as it relates to, and you've talked about some of the earlier stuff before you were director of art fair that you were committed to in terms of mentorship and all of that. But can you tell us why it's important for the fair to be able to support emerging artists? Kind of drill down into that a little bit, because it's a bit abstract, or can be.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that's an excellent question. And sure, it's something that maybe people don't think a lot about, but I think that in Canada we have this embarrassment of riches, this incredible rich, diverse art scene from across the country. And, the fact of the matter is the art collecting market is quite small. And as a result, we talk about this a lot in the creative community, that when people hit a kind of stride in their career, they often move away. They move to the States, they move Europe. They go to different places where there are stronger markets. So I think when I think about growing the market here, when I think about really creating opportunities for artists to live in Canada, to stay in Canada, to stay in the major cities, accessing that market is essential. And also, I think about those artists those Canadian artists, they're telling Canadian stories. And when they go and live somewhere else, we as Canadians kind of often lose a little bit of access to their markets, and to the new work and the major works that they go on to make. I'm thinking about people like Tao Lewis, for instance, or Kapwani Kawanga, who is based in Paris and won the Sobey Prize, of course, in 2019. And so the question that I ask myself is also, it's this whole trickle down effect. Who are the collectors that are buying that work that will then donate it to our institutions in 20 years, in 25 years? So I think of it as a bit of a I worry about a cultural kind of a brain drain to an extent. And in my work in the fair, and I come to this as an exhibition maker. I was not someone who was directly involved with the commercial art scene, but I think that my entire career, all the work that I do is, I just want to make art and make art happen. I want to connect as many people as possible, the widest audiences, with how exciting it is to participate in contemporary art, to see the conversations that are the conversation starters, really. I think part of what is so exciting about art is that an artist can present ideas that they can't necessarily articulate in words, and we all learn from that. So in my work at the fair, I'm thinking about really setting the stage for connecting a wider audience of living with art and supporting artists to ensure that the creative community, that artists have a strong future here in Canada.
And just, I've been hanging around art since the beginning, and and have had the privilege of working on a few projects with you and predecessors. And I think people see the art fair, when you see the photographs, it's like a lot of people and there's a bunch of art in these little booths and people are buying stuff. But, a lot of what you do is like that, not behind the scenes, but it's not core or germane in a way to the outward presence of the fair, like the talks on the stage, like
That's
these
right.
kinds of virtual things. Why do you have to do that? Why do you have to do that?
Well, I think, creating a context for contemporary art is an important part of this role. Also, I think, in it's not just Canada, but also creating that dialogue and that context for that dialogue within the international art community to see why these artists are making this work and why it's important within the international context of art. I also think that, we have this really interesting opportunity in that we can create and foster so many different kinds of conversations. So, one of the things that we did last year was a series of studio visits that were very, very well received. I think our audience was pretty excited to, to see where the work comes from, to understand from the artist directly, where, that whole ideation process, just what we were seeing with Emily. And it was so nice to see that process that, and really bringing that to a wider audience. I think is particularly important in Canada, where we are really growing a market.
Yeah, those conversations, they are really, to use your word, they are very important. So thank you, Mia.
Cool.
And
yeah, thanks for
Onika, And Onika, I'm going to just to set this up a little bit. At the core of what Vibe Arts does is children and youth engagement, and they're informed by, and I really appreciated these three pillars: education, collaboration, and accessibility. That's quite beautiful, if you ask me. Your programs certainly demonstrate the transformative capacity of the arts and the resonance of creativity beyond conventional, and you mentioned it a little bit, beyond the conventional gallery or studio notion. So I wonder if you can maybe tell us a little more about that and how you feel arts affects change. And I think talk a little bit about your civic engagement, which I found a really fascinating component of what your organization does.
Yes, I think for sure if we think about COVID, everything that artists have done for our community, for our city to really keep us going, that's kind of how I look at any programming that we do through Vibe, is just getting out of the traditional sense of doing arts. So as I mentioned, we do arts programming for marginalized, under-resourced communities, but part of that is making sure we are providing an opportunity for those voices to be heard. How do we amplify it? How do we create a sense of pride in the community where, an elder could look at a young person who they saw grow up and be like, oh, wow, look at their artwork. Look who they've become. How can a next generation, the younger ones looking up to their big brothers and sisters and cousins and being like, wow, I could do this too. Just really changing the view of art being just something on the side, but you can make this as a career. You can make this to help other people, to change your life, to start conversations that are very difficult, even around the dinner table or anything like that, but just doing it through art. So that's our main focus anytime we create, whether it's an arts program or an opportunity for our mentorship programs, our artists in them. In terms of civic engagement, when we do our mentorship programs, we make sure that we do include artist talks, and that just basically gives the public an opportunity to learn about our artists going through these mentorship programs. Most of them, they're like 10 months, 8 to 10 months long. So just having them part of that, knowing like, okay, I started at this part where I was very, not confident in my work, not confident to even speak to somebody. And this is how I grew. This is how working with this mentor who turned out to be like a big brother to me has helped me through this journey, and really educating the public on, some of the accessibility issues that are going on, especially for the BIPOC community, some of the, racism that happens to them, where it's, as an artist, you can't just go into a gallery and be like, hey, I would like to have my art shown. Like some of them, you have to have some certain experience. And where do you get experience if you're not being allowed into certain spaces? So even that's important to me. Again, going back to using my network, I create those conversations with institutions to really break down like, hey, this is, from an anti-oppression lens, like this is what's going on. These are the barriers that you may not realize you have set up for a lot of artists, but let's work together to break them down. And a lot of the time it is education. A lot of people in certain positions, they don't realize because they're so comfortable in their position and doing the same thing for so long. But once you create those opportunities where artists could just freely speak their mind and speak about where they would like to go and working together to make the connection, that's basically my vision with Vibe, with anything we do, is the education, collaboration, creating accessibility, amplifying voices, not just for the community, but really for emerging artists.
And it's interesting because not that mentorship isn't important at every stage in a career, right? From very, very emerging to very, very senior. I mean, but the thrust of the organization really dealing with young people, and that's a critical moment. And I don't know if you wanted to just make a little bit on how important it is capturing or having the ability to capture those voices at that particular time, and the encouragement and what that looks like.
Yeah, no, I think it's very important, and I get it because I'm an artist, so I understand when I'm older, I look back and see who was really there to support me. So as an organization, it's important for us to help not to like get, kudos on our side, but really to help and support, the next generation of artists. But a lot of them do come back and they come onto our roster as established artists, and they are now mentoring the next, generation, because they could actually speak from that experience. It's you're not just hearing from somebody who said, they've been doing this for 35 years and don't worry, this is how you should do it. It's like, no, actually, you made a statement and said, from a senior level, I think it's even, mentorship is important when you get to a senior level too. You're always learning. But how do you learn from what you have done and sharing your mistakes, sharing the good parts of it, the bad parts of it, and allowing your mentee or the emerging artist to really grow and support them to navigate through that the system. But I don't know if I answered the question.
you did actually. No, very well. And I love that idea that, you build a relationship with young people, and then they come back as artists, as more senior artists, more emerging artists, and contribute back to the organization. And that cycle is really fascinating. So thank you.
Yeah. And just one more thing to add. It builds confidence. I was going to say, definitely, not the skills that they're obtaining and learning in this artistic environment, they're able to take out, whether they want to go into the corporate world and whether they want to say, okay, I don't want to do art anymore, but at least they're learning, how do I work well with others? How do I find my voice to speak up? How do I find my voice to apply for certain things? So yeah, I think that helps too with the confidence, just getting that from the beginning to all the way wherever they decide to go in the end.
No, thank you very much. That was really terrific. And now, Nadine, moving on to you. And so Myseum, really fascinating and complicated initiative. I mean, and it's safe to say it's an itinerant initiative that moves through this, I'm paraphrasing, through the fabric and narratives of Toronto, and makes the city itself the museum site, which I find really fascinating. And by taking the function of a museum to the neighborhoods, communities, and spaces where these moments are being created, can you tell us more about how you've seen that empowering emergent voices?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of who when we talk about representing our city, when we talk about representing the diversity of our city, in thinking about who has the capacity and the resources to do so, I think that really is kind of what grounds us in the decisions that we make in terms of who we work with, and really is at the center of how we work. And so, I think often, the idea of empowering community to tell their own story, and really thinking about, I mean, we're a history museum. And so this idea of using art as an entry point, as an accessible entry point to the diverse histories of our city, is really, it is really at the center of our work and how we think about storytelling and who we enable to do that storytelling. So often, I mean, we talk about Onika and her work with Vibe Arts and mentorship with youth, but often, in giving a voice, particularly to, BIPOC voices, that's often not, that could easily be an artist who is mid to late life, who for many different reasons has not had the opportunity to either practice their art form or just have a platform for their work. So I think just even providing a platform for those artists in that work is pretty crucial.
And you mentioned partnerships when you had for presenting your introduction, and I just want to talk a little bit because you looking at this group, I could see all of you working together, on a bunch of different things. To tell you the truth, like it really was fascinating, and I know the way that you guys work in that sort of itinerant museum format, I mean, you're also working in, I mean, sometimes you embrace artwork, sometimes it's food, sometimes it's cultural history. And I think, you know, that format of having partnerships, that gives you the flexibility to attack all of those really interesting and diverse, subject matter, and to be able to do things in a flexible way that perhaps other institutions, organizations, I don't know if you have any comments on that.
No, other than that's really the model. The model is that the museum is not kind of the driving voice. We are enabling other voices. And that's precisely why we're able to present our work in just such a diversity of forms. Because often that work is initiated by the partner and originates out of communities and how they want to tell their stories. So yeah, it's central to the model.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Amy. It's fascinating. You know, I'm looking at, we're 45 minutes in, and I've got a final question that I'm going to throw out to each of you. And it's really just to give us a sense of what you guys have got on the horizon. What can we expect from you? And I know, again, it's been, you know, I don't know, I think everybody's so desperate to get back to normal. Everybody's so desperate to roll out their plans, you know, so I'm really excited to hear what you guys are planning. So why don't we start with you, Onika?
Well, so much. Currently, right now, we have artists working by the Kingston Galway storefront. They're doing a mural for Start, so you could, if you're in that area, definitely check it out. Artworks TO, Year of Public Art, we have 4 additional murals going around up at different museums around the city this summer, with a grand finale at Fort York, so we're excited for that. Cultural hotspot, we have a birdhouse installation from the Etobicoke community. So we actually have been doing programming where participants have been painting birdhouses by our lead artist, and then she's taking all of them together and creating this amazing installation that will be going on at Montgomery's Inn. We have Arts in the Park going on right now with a grand finale at the end of the month where you can learn numerous different types of dance styles. We have mentorship programs that will be having exhibitions at the end in TTC panels, window displays at St. Lawrence Center of the Arts. There is so much happening at Vive. We are truly blessed. So yeah, that's us.
Is a ton of stuff. Thank you so much for the preview. And Nadine, I'm going to go back to you. What's going on with Myseum over the next, say, few months, year?
That's a lot of things. Just coming up right now, we have Down by the Water. We've partnered with Elder Duke Redbird again to present Wigwam Chitamung, which is a floating art installation and learning center down by the water. Of course, because of COVID, we don't have the same kind of public hours where people can come and interact with Duke personally for our Ask an Elder sessions, but we do have a phone line that people can call when they're down by the boat, or even if just from the comfort of their own homes, to hear, Duke's perspective on reconciliation, on land acknowledgements. And then we have some in-conversation programs with Tanya Sank and Andrew Balfour, the composer. We have Toronto Stories Live program, which is a storytelling program. And those storytellers, we have storytellers who are going to tell the stories of Daphne Ojig, the 1955 mayoral election, Jean Lum, the first binational lesbian conference. So those are the stories for that program. We have a kind of a choose your own adventure dramatization of the 1851 anti-slavery convention that happened at St. Lawrence Hall. So there's that. And then, of course, we have our annual Intersections Festival, which is digital and still ongoing now. We're finishing up some projects, but in April 2022, we have hopefully a fully live festival in person. So yeah, many things. I'm sure I'm forgetting several.
Well, it just means we have to stay tuned and stay in touch with Myseum to find out what all that exciting stuff is going to look like. So thank you, Nadine. And Mia, Nielsen, Art Fair 2022, what's that, or 2021, what's that going to look like?
Let's do 2021 first.
Perfect.
We'll just run chronologically. I am thrilled that we will be back at the convention center this year for an in-person show. It will be a little bit smaller than in years past, with many COVID, and social distance measures in place. But I think we're all really thrilled to be seeing art in person again. We have an incredible roster of galleries that are coming from across Canada, and as well as the Emerging Galleries program that I was talking about. So we've got some really interesting site-specific installation programs, and an incredible diversity of just the kinds of work that you'll see. So, but I don't want to say too much, because we have a big announcement that's coming the week of August 9th. So if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, please do so at arttoronto.ca, and you will soon see all the great stuff coming for this year. And I should say the whole thing will also be online, and we're working with a new platform this year called Artland, which is really an incredible platform. They do VR exhibitions, so it's it's this kind of like perfect marriage of a nuanced and beautiful online experience, while also being able to see the artwork really the way it should be. You can zoom in and see different angles and stuff. It'll be good.
Cool. And now that you're almost an honorary 401 tenant, I guess all of us will be collaborating with Art Fair now, right?
Yeah, I hope so.
Excellent. Thank you, Mia. And Emily, so listen, you're going to be first out the door with how many exhibitions are coming out of that studio? So, tell us what you've got going. This is really fascinating.
Yeah, it's awesome. As I mentioned, I am getting my, I guess it's my first solo show next year at Carche Maison in Ottawa. It's so wonderful to bring the project back to Ottawa, bringing in that level of site specificity. So kind of bringing it home. But in addition, I've actually been able to work with FADO, Performance Arts Center, which is also in the 401 building. And hearing all the panelists talk about just the opportunities they remember that afforded them to be where they are today. I've really, I think, coming out of this whole pandemic experience, we're still in it, but, I wanted to share that opportunity. So I've created a project where I'll be working with 7 other artists. I've created a framework around unproductive actions, or at least actions that are unproductive to capitalist demands. So we'll be exploring things like napping and waiting and wandering, daydreaming, these actions that actually are needed to be creative. And I wanted to carve a space for other people to really engage with their practice in a different way, and hopefully use it as a tool for their own practice. And so those findings, I hope to create a publication. It's definitely an experiment, and I'm just really excited to again share my opportunity with FADO with other people. So that's what I'm looking at on the horizon.
Well, that is excellent. Thank you. And that's quite a beautiful space in Ottawa, the Carche Massey. I can't remember that name, but very beautiful space. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Well, and okay, so I'm again looking at the time, and we got a few more minutes. I have an announcement to make, but I'm going to forego the questions, because I think we've covered just about everything that anybody wanted to know about anyway in the questions. But and I just sort of thought that there's lots and lots to take away from this discussion, but I think the one thing to underscore is, and you guys have you've got this down, is the generosity. Like really just hearing about the way that you engage, and looking to a diversity of voices, and looking to bring in intergenerational voices. All of that stuff super important. I think it's very inspiring to hear that from such a range of organizations and individuals. And that you all are providing really remarkable opportunities. I mean, just hearing about the projects that you're working on, and how people can be involved, and how they can contribute, and what they can sort of learn from those involvements, I think are also super inspiring and really interesting. And I did want to highlight Nadine's instruction that you should just pick up the phone, because I think that's a really, honestly, that's really important. I can't tell you, it drives me crazy on the one hand, but I'm always gratified, in the end, when I get somebody who calls me, wants information, and that I can contribute in some way. So all of this advice has been really, and insights and wisdom have been really terrific. So thank you very, very much. Oh,
Can I
Nadine.
just to that, William? I would just
Absolutely.
say the people that you're asking for advice and information on may be very busy, so follow up if you don't hear the person.
Good idea.
Everybody nodded. It's true. So
You're absolutely right.
Don't feel rejected if you don't hear back right away, and feel free to be persistent.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, so listen, I am going to, we're almost to the end of the program. I got 5 minutes, so I'm gonna make good use of this. But before we conclude, as I mentioned, we got a very special announcement, and so it's my honor to introduce, and this is the best part of these engagements annually, is to introduce the 2021-22 recipient of the Career Launcher Prize. And perhaps we can do, a virtual applause or a drum roll or something for Stephen Tucker. And I think we've got Stephen here today with us, and this is the announcement. You are now public. Everyone knows that you are the recipient this year, and I'm congratulations to begin with. And I'm wondering, can you say a little bit about yourself, and a little bit about maybe some of the plans you've got? We got just a short period of time, but it would be great to hear from you.
Yeah, of course, and thank you so much. I think over the pandemic, like the one good thing maybe was being able to utilize a little bit more space. And I found my practice, I work on a lot of things at once. And when I thought of how am I going to continue this afterwards, I just thought there was no possible way. And when I found 401 Richmond, I just don't think there's another opportunity quite like this. And being involved with the community as well is, so I'm just super grateful and ready to get in there and experiment and make some work.
And again, as Emily pointed out, let's hope that we've got the ability to be in your space more frequently than we were in the last year in any spaces. And so certainly, congratulations once again, and we all look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. So we're pretty much at the end of our program for today, and I just wanted to finish it up with some final acknowledgements. And of course, the one that we always are so appreciative of their involvement is Beanfield Metro Connect. And these guys have been very generous with 401 Richmond Street in providing the connectivity. They're in fact our official community connectivity partner. And so none of the interesting content that we produce would be able to get into the world, certainly over the last year, if it weren't for Beanfield and that technological infrastructure that they provided us. So thank you to Beanfield, and we look forward to continue to work with you moving forward. And once again, thanks to our panelists. And, it's a real thrill to always, hear what you guys have to say, what you're up to, all of the amazing projects and initiatives. And what you'll see on the screen now is that we have all of their social media handles. If you're not already following them, please do. Really exciting stuff. And as we've discovered, so much is going on that it really is important to check in regularly. And in terms of checking in regularly, the YouTube channel for 401 has become a really important platform for us to be able to deliver this kind of programming. So I would, really hope to see you back here again soon. We will be announcing, we're all working away. Jennifer's working away on sending out more details about some of our upcoming programs. So again, please come back and check out what's going on. And again, we hope to see you here frequently and very soon. And once again, I'm William Huffman. It's always a thrill to spend time with you. And have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thank you again.